Hey, Diana, did you know learning critical business skills is easy?
Mark, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said.
Ladies and gentlemen, jurists and just curious, welcome to the Successful Barrister podcast. Here you'll learn about marketing, management, and life skills for lawyers that probably won't get you disbarred. Hosted by Marc Whitehead, a seasoned lawyer who remembers when fax machines were cutting edge, and Diana Berry, attorney, COO, and the brains behind the scenes. Together, they are the legal world's most dynamic duo since statutes met regulations. So if you're looking to build a practice, not a prison, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful Barrister, where legal legends are made.
And welcome to the Successful Barrister podcast, the podcast for lawyers and law firm leaders about marketing, management, and life skills that probably won't get you disbarred. I am your host, Marc Whitehead, alongside here with my number one, my COO, Diana Berry. Hey, Diana, what's going on?
You know, Mark, I've got a bone to pick with you.
Oh, no.
Our episode on unreasonable hospitality, the lightest, fluffiest, most amazing thing we could talk about, got an explicit rating on Apple.
How the fuck did that happen?
Mark, you're gonna make me re-record this, and it's right before our Thanksgiving potluck.
I know.
And I'm starving. All the good smells coming from downstairs, and we need to get through this. And if you make me re-record this because of your language, sir,
You don't have to re-record it. It's fine. We can.
But I just don't understand how an episode on unreasonable hospitality somehow garners an explicit rating.
We always get better ratings when we have an explicit rating. So
yes,
so
but
people
listeners,
like smut. People like smut. That's just true.
Listeners, let's hope you're not getting smut from this
Especially
podcast.
our listeners. So.
Well, I think that our listeners should give us feedback and let us know whether or not they think that we should have explicit ratings.
Diana at Marc at Diana at marcwhitehead.com.
Yes,
Mark
sir.
spelled with a C.
Please let us know.
You know, I just hit DI and your email pops up. I don't have to type
You
out
don't
the
know
whole
the
thing.
rest,
I
yeah.
don't really know the rest.
Yeah. So, but that's really, I think I've now had my therapy session. So thank you, Mark. How are you doing today?
Good. So today, this is the Thursday before Thanksgiving as we record today, which is a fun day for me. This is our firm potluck where everybody brings a dish and we just go fill up our conference room with all of the homemade dishes that all of the people here make, and we just go gorge ourselves.
This is one of my favorite traditions.
It's one of the favorite traditions I have here at Marc Whitehead Associates. Every Thanksgiving, right before the Thursday before Thanksgiving, because obviously the Thursday of Thanksgiving, we're all going to be home with our families. We have the potluck, and I cop out, so I don't actually cook a dish. I go buy smoked turkey from Good Company Barbecue.
For which we appreciate.
For Good Company plug for Good Company Barbecue right here in Houston, Texas. The best smoked turkey you'll ever get.
Well, I think we both copped out, Mark. I brought a veggie tray
What?
with ranch dip.
Did you go to the grocery store and just buy a veggie tray?
Literally this morning I went and bought the ranch dip and I made the sour cream anyway. But yes, I bought a whole bunch of veggies and a tray. And
Okay. So
but
but
Cindy said we needed veggies.
So we both copped out. Okay, fine. All right, what are we talking about today, Dinah?
I'm excited. We're not talking about, well, not all marketing. What are we talking about, Mark?
So we're going to talk about the critical business skills necessary for success. And we're going to base this off of, so one of my favorite things is a company called The Great Courses. They've gone through a couple of name changes. They were called One Drum. Actually, they were called The Great Courses, and they went to One Drum, and they realized nobody understood that, so they've gone back to The Great Courses. What it is, just Google Great Courses online. It is a series of college-level courses. Comes with a course outline, and but they're basically broken up into 30-minute segments, and it's courses on anything, on language, on social studies. You can do math, anything like that. But they also have a section on business and business skills. And they have a master course called Critical Business Skills for Success. It is long. It has like 36 lessons in it. So it took me a while to get through it. But the brilliance of it used to be you bought each course individually. And I think when I bought the Critical Business Skills, it was $139. Now they've gone to a subscription model, which is a great business model, by the way. If any of you can figure out how to turn law into a subscription-based business, the estate planning lawyers have done that.
They've got that one figured out.
They've got that figured out. Now it's $30 a month, and you have access to everything in their library, and it's a huge library of courses.
It's the right price point, too.
It's the right price point, and the great thing about it, you get all this college-level coursework, and you don't have to take a frickin' test at the end.
And so is that what you modeled today's podcast?
So that's what we've
Mark?
modeled today's podcast on. So there's this course, the master class called Critical Business Skills for Success. And I have actually re-listened to it, and you get an outline. I think the outline's like 120 pages or something, and I've reread the outline a couple of times. It is basically the fundamentals of everything that I learned in a business degree in college. And it took me 4.5 years to do it. And I can do it in a very short amount of time, and just a good summary of my entire college career. So I really enjoyed it. And so what I envision here, so there's 5 pieces, and I envision that we're going to do a summary of it today. And then over the course of the next couple of months, we'll probably periodically pick out each one of these 5 pieces, 5 sections within what we're going to talk about today. And we'll probably do a deeper dive, more in-depth podcast on that one little piece. Probably won't do it all back to back. I don't want to get people too far down the weeds on this, but we'll probably do it maybe once a month. We'll pull one of these out and go through it.
Sounds great. So what are the 5 pieces?
So the 5 pieces, the 5 core skills, I think we should use their terminology, core skills, not pieces, are number 1, strategy, which is seeing the big picture. Number 2, operations, which means running efficiently. Number 3, finance, knowing your numbers. We've talked about that a lot, knowing your numbers. Number 4, marketing, my favorite subject, attracting and keeping clients. And number 5, this is, I think, one that people miss a lot, is organizational behavior, which basically means leading people effectively. And, so the thing is, law school teaches us about the law. It teaches us about torts, not teamwork. It teaches you about contracts, not cash flow. So that's great if you want to learn the technical skills of being a lawyer, which we should all learn. But I've always said I think most people's technical skills top out about somewhere between year 5 and 10 in their legal career. But most people don't really start grasping the business skills of actually how to run a law firm and run a profitable practice, sadly, until much later. And I think the goal here is we're trying to attempt to teach people how to shortcut that and learn the business skills as soon as possible. If I'd have known all this stuff 33 years ago, like I said, my boat wouldn't be 27 feet, it'd be 127 feet. So, but, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the second best time? Today. So hopefully we can impart that on some of our listeners. And let's learn some business skills on how to actually run a profitable practice, because profitable lawyers are better lawyers, honestly. Some lawyers worry about, hey, profit, that seems sort of, selfish, or, that shouldn't be your prime motivating factor. Your client should be your prime motivating factor. And understand that is true. However, if we are profitable, I can hire better people. I can hire better experts. I can install better technology. I can hold out for that last dollar and instead of settling the case short because the firm needs cash flow. Running a good business actually is good customer service, and that's the argument here that I'm going to be making. Always thought about look at. Not every state does this, but Texas does this. At the back of our monthly bar journal, they have a disciplinary section. So every lawyer that has run afoul of the bar and has ended up being disbarred or getting suspended, they get their name in there and a write-up about what they did, and it is scary. And of course, being the ghoulish person that I am, it's the first thing I turn to is I turn to that section when I get the bar journal. And if you look at it, none of these people went to law school and said, my goal one day is to get listed in the disciplinary section of the bar journal. Nobody ever says that. So why do they end up there? And you repeatedly, if you look and read about it, it's always because they were in financial trouble. They were cutting corners. They were charging clients, an exorbitant fee, or refused to refund a client the fee when the refund was due, and they get into fee disputes with clients, or they would be having money problems and they'd start dipping into the client trust fund, stupid stuff like that. And people do that because they're under financial pressure. And the whole idea here is if you run a good business and a good profitable business, you won't be under the financial pressure. You'll be doing the right things instead of the wrong things. So that's kind of the thesis that I preach to all of my coaching clients, is running a good profitable business is good customer service. So anyway, that's what we're going to talk about here a little bit today, and maybe over the next series of these 5 episodes that we're going to do.
Yeah, and Mark, I think I come from a family of doctors, and so I think I take a lot of lessons from the medical practice, whose primary goal, like ours, is to serve clients, is for them to serve patients. And the whole private equity, and we're not getting into that in this podcast, the entrance of private equity into the legal space. But I think that there are some similarities into how the business, how you can treat the practice as a business, and they're completely different skills. I know a lot of our listeners are like, okay, Mark, but I'm not going to end up in the back of a bar journal. First of all, make sure you don't.
Nobody ever said they were. Nobody's ever said that.
But then second, even if you know that you're not, I think that the second thing is, well, you may still not have the know-how to still run a good business. It's not just the profitability. It's like, okay, well, now how do I go get clients? That's the marketing side of it. Okay, now I have an employee. What do I do with that employee? How do I make sure that employee doesn't go away? And so that's the organizational behavior side of it. And so I think here, I'm very excited about your course, Mark, and because it's really what we've kind of talked about throughout how many episodes do we have now?
We're
over
pushing
50.
60-ish, something like that.
We talk about it, but never in this structure. So look forward to hearing all of your thoughts and how it comes together.
All right. With that, we'll be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability benefits law firm. Marc Whitehead runs a firm of over 60 dedicated people whose mission is to make a difference in the lives of our injured and disabled clients. Marc represents disabled claimants in Social Security disability, private disability insurance, and veterans disability claims in all 50 states. Marc Whitehead is double board certified in both Social Security disability law and personal injury trial law. Marc has litigated disability cases in over 40 states and counting, and can help your clients too. Stop throwing your phone calls away. Call Marc Whitehead at 701-VIP-LEAD. That's 701-VIP-LEAD. Or visit our website at disabilitydenials.com. Referral fees are paid in all jurisdictions where it is permitted. Refer us your disability cases today and know that your clients will be in good hands.
All right, we're back. All right, so I think that the general problem is, most lawyers are good technicians. Many lawyers are great technicians. In other words, they know the ins and outs of how to be a lawyer. But most of us were never trained how to be business leaders. That is something that law schools woefully neglect. I have heard rumor that they are starting to sort of address the issue, but we'll see. But they sure as hell didn't in my day, and I know they didn't in your day. And that's really the problem, is that we need to learn how to be business leaders. I frequently refer to myself, I'm the CEO of this firm. Technically, I'm the managing partner in this firm, but functionally what I am is I'm the CEO. I view myself as a business person first these days, at this point in my practice. I have good lawyers that work for me that are the technicians, but I'm the business leader. You're the business leader.
Absolutely.
You're my number one. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's kind of the way I think about it. And I think most lawyers don't think about that. They probably start thinking about it in about year 10 when they really start to struggle. And I know a lot of struggles. We talked about this in previous podcasts that lawyers suffer from burnout at an absorbently high rate relative to other professions. We suffer from, a higher rate of suicide, a higher rate of alcoholism, all because of the stresses of the practice. And I firmly believe it is because that most lawyers don't have adequate business skills, and therefore they are bogged down in the technical work of the practice, and yet are still under a tremendous financial strain because they have a hard time figuring out how to be profitable relative to the amount of work that they have to put into it.
Yeah, and it's just hard. We've talked about this with the cash quadrant episode. You end up as the accidental business owner, and so you're still the rainmaker, and those are two very hard positions to fill, especially at the same time. And so, and I think that if you find yourself there, listener, I think today's episode is really going to be helpful for you because the way you lay it out in your, course. Are we calling this a course?
It is a course.
It's a course.
It is an absolute course.
The way that you've laid this out is a great foundation. Okay, well, I think listeners will be able to say, okay, yeah, I need more focus on that. So hopefully tune in for that specific episode. But you want to start, Mark, or you do start with strategy.
Yes.
Strategery,
as George Bush would say. Strategy starts with mapping the journey. In other words, where do you want to go? So again, as we mentioned in the first segment, there's 5 core skills that we're going to talk about. The first one is strategy, seeing the big picture. And you define business strategy as choosing where to play and when to play. To translate that, what sort of practice area do you want to be in? And how are you going to win? How are you going to make a profit in that particular practice area? And I've said on this podcast before, I've gone through like 4 different practice areas in my 33 years. I have morphed. We started off as sort of kind of a general criminal defense PI firm, and then we added bankruptcy, and then we dropped bankruptcy, and then we dropped criminal, and we became a PI firm, and then we added disability, and then we ended up moving away from PI into a pure disability firm, and then added multiple, types of disability to the practice. So these were all conscious decisions that I made, but this is all, the first step in formulating a strategy is, where am I going to play and how am I going to win at it? And your markets can be different things. You could choose your market based on practice area. You could choose your market based on the type of client that I want to represent. There's lots of different differentiators out there. But there are trade-offs to that. By saying yes to one thing, you might be saying no to something else, and you kind of have to make those decisions. We have made the trade-off that we've moved away from single event personal injury cases, which used to be the majority of what I did. So where I got all my trial experience. But I made a conscious decision that it was not a place that I wanted to play. I thought there was too much competition. I thought it was too hard to get cases. We were all fighting, over car wreck cases, which I've said before, I think are going away. So I made a strategic decision to shift out of that practice area and get out of that extremely competitive environment and move into an environment that, had a little bit more blue ocean, a little bit more, open running room and less competition. And it's worked out well for us. But that was a strategy about where I was going to choose to play.
I think strategy is one of those amorphous words that people like to say, and it's hard for people to understand. Okay, well, what does that even mean? Like brass tacks, tell me what that really means. And for me, it's a few things. Like what you said about choosing where to play. I think it's just as important, that thing about trade-offs. Where aren't you going to play? So I think that it's also about making sure you have a cohesive vision. So I think about strategy almost in those same words, is almost like where, and I think EOS does a great job of this. So, we have a VTO, and I know we've done EOS to death on this podcast, Mark, but the VTO is the Vision Traction Organizer, and it does a great job of making sure that we are strategic. So, it talks first about our core values. That's who we are. And then our core focus, why we do what we do. The 5-year target, where we're going. And then it goes through the who, what, where, when, why, basically, like, why are we doing all these things? And that's how you can it's a great tool, I think, listeners, for, you're like, well, I don't know what strategy means. Do I have strategy? Mark, do we have strategy? I think we have strategy. And I'd encourage you to go back and listen to either the EOS episode or pull out the VTO tool. It's a free one on their EOS website. And that's a good way to figure out what's your strategy, and you'll get to those really quickly.
Right. And one of the key things, and one of the reasons we moved into the disability realm, is it allows us to expand our geography. And that was a conscious decision based on choice. For personal injury work, I'm licensed in the state of Texas, which meant, at least at the time, I was limited to practicing personal injury law in the state of Texas, which is a pretty big place to practice, admittedly, but it's very competitive. Where in the disability realm, because it's a pure federal practice, we can practice all over the nation. So we've now litigated in 44 states, plus Puerto Rico. I think that was the last time we counted.
We should update that for
we
26.
probably, I think
Let's
we
update
probably added a few more states since then. But by making a conscious choice on where to playing in a federal practice area, it allowed us to expand our geographical reach, which allowed us to market in more places, and expand, basically our ability to pull in, a large quantity of cases. I mean, we are a volume practice. We have to by necessity, because we're fee capped by the government. So, we can't get more per case. So we've got to get more cases. That's just the nature of the business. Again, that was a strategic, trade-off that we chose, and we made a choice there. Kind of like, you might want to talk a little bit about elder law as a natural extension, which was another strategic choice that we made.
Yeah, tell us about that, Mark.
Oh, well, I was pitching that to you, so you could tell us about that.
Well, it was your decision. I really
I
am curious.
know.
I mean, obviously, yes, it was a natural evolution of how we can serve our clientele that are beyond our usual age range for our clients.
So our natural constituency are older people 45 to 65, okay? Well, what happens with people when they, get further on down the line, when they get 65 to 70, 75 or 70 to 75, 75 to 80 and so forth? This is our client base that's aging. So how can we capture some of the market with that aging client base and continue to serve them and continue to do so in a way that benefits them and, rewards us financially? Well, elder law was the natural extension of that. We didn't just choose it willy-nilly. We thought about it strategically. What would be a natural extension that we could add on to the practice that would make sense?
Yeah, and I think that when you're making these strategic decisions or decisions about your strategy, some of the things that you've said, Mark, just to wrap it up, this particular element is that all of your information was grounded in, all of your decisions were grounded in solid information. Like, you were very crystal clear about where the PI space, the competition was, but also where car wrecks were going. So being very clear and having about your insights about your market, your competition, your customers, even your employees, is how you form strategy.
Yeah. So my favorite quote, about strategy is about making choices and the discipline to stick to them. Say this to my kids all the time: make good choices.
Well, and I think that that's kind of leading perfectly to your second, what do we call these, Mark?
Core skills.
Their second core skill, which is operations, because I think the discipline to stick to your choices is actually operations. So introduce the second core skill for us, please, Mark.
Okay, so the second one, and this is your baby.
It is.
It is your baby. Operations, that's what you love. That's why you have the title, COO. It's about turning chaos into systems. And this just fits your high C so perfectly.
In a way that being a lawyer wasn't. So, I mean, we should probably do a podcast on that one day, just the mindset set of shifting from lawyer to CEO, and then for me, lawyer to COO, because I mean, I still slip up and say, yeah, I'm a lawyer. I'm like, well, really, I'm a COO these days. And so operations, yes, making sure the trains run on time, executing, Drucker, famous business writer, says that strategy.
Peter Drucker.
Sorry, Peter.
The brilliant Peter Drucker.
The brilliant Peter Drucker.
Yes.
Said that strategy is a commodity, execution is an art, which of course I just think is great, because that's all what operations is. Your ability to take strategy and make it actually happen. And that's operations. And so it's everything from, what your people are going to say the first time they pick up the phone. So your scripts, down to intake, of course, to how your handoffs go. That's quality control, SOPs, and then of course any workflow. I think with all of that's process, which can help you create scalability, and is ultimately your competitive advantage. That's where I like the tweaks. It's still a puzzle, the same way that law is in operations. But you get to say, okay, what if I plug and play this piece of technology? What if we're able to do this automated message here to maybe eliminate some of the client discontent? It's a really fun way to serve our clients.
So I was thinking that EOS has something to do with our operations. Explain how we use EOS within operations.
That's a great question. I don't know. I mean, so we use EOS. So obviously, there's a lot of tools that EOS has. Everything from the level 10 meetings all the way to our rocks. The tools like the delegate and elevate tool, the scorecards. So there's a lot of different tools there, Mark. So I'm just going to pick my favorite one, which is the scorecard, because you had dashboards when I got here, right? So you had your monthly dashboard meeting. So you were looking at numbers. But what EOS did in the scorecard, it makes it real easy to see longitudinally. Do you like that?
I like that word.
Across the quarter, because I break down the spreadsheet by quarter. First, your goal. That's in black ink. And then how you're doing each week to that goal in red or green. And of course, yes, all of our fancy Litify tools do that in our dashboards. But when you can see it over time, just the other day I said, hey, Mark, contracts are down. We're in the red 4 weeks. Are y'all looking at this at intake in your marketing level 10? And you said, yeah, it's expected behavior this time of year. Whereas our dashboard will just tell us the number and says, yeah, we're down maybe this week, but it won't tell you that over time. And I think that that's the beauty. It's so simple and yet so beautiful.
It is. So I'll pick the operational tool that I like best about EOS, which is the level 10 meeting. And the sub-level 10 meetings, the departmental level 10
Rolling
meetings.
it out across the firm.
Because that's the thing, is there's so many ideas that you want to implement, but how do you roll that out across the staff of whatever we've got now? I've forgotten how many we have now, but a lot. Mm-hmm. So 60, 70, 2,000, I don't know. My payroll seems to indicate it's in the thousands.
Let's call it 70 across with everybody.
Okay. So how do you get the message across to 70 people? In the level 10 meetings are a great way to get information filtered down in an effective way, down to every level of the firm. But again, it's all about, it's all about the traction of it. That's what operations is about. I can come up with all the great ideas in the strategy session, but if I can't execute on the ideas in the operations side, then what good did it do? So
exactly. Yep. So that's why I think operations is kind of the unsung hero sometimes. Just because strategy, the vision, chasing the shiny object, all that stuff gets a lot of playtime. But I think operations is always just none of that's good without operations.
All right, Diana, I'm going to let you introduce core value number 3.
Which is just so weird because it's finance, which is great. So you have here finance, the language of decision making, and that makes sense, right? Tracking your financial metrics, whether that's through profitability or, of course, cash flow. That's always the one we keep talking about here. You have to have a good financial literate person on your team. If you don't have someone, if you yourself, like I am not necessarily, that's not my strong suit. I have to work at understanding the numbers. Mark just rattles off numbers and then, that's great.
Numbers flow for me. I
They
do.
don't
That is my superpower. Numbers flow for me. It just all makes sense.
And they don't necessarily flow for me. And so I think
That you do better at than you give yourself credit for.
Why, thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. And I'm going to take that with that little pat on the back. But I think that you have to, especially if you're a growing firm, have someone who like Mark, has financial literacy. Drucker again says what gets measured gets managed, and you must manage your financial health of your firm.
All right. So I like the term here. Profit is theory, cash is reality. We talked about that before in this podcast. A lot of people will show a profit, but then they have no cash, and they don't understand why. And that's part of being financially literate. You have to cover all the aspects of how the finances work within your firm. It's not just your profit and loss. You have to look at your balance sheet. You have to look at your statement of cash flows, which you should have one of those. Where does your cash? What are all these non-profit items, non-P&L items that keep sucking cash? Like the tax man. Guess what? The tax man is a big profits is a big sucker of cash.
Yep.
And you have to plan for that. And you want to cover the basic financial firm metrics like, what is my cost per case? Which means basically how much does it cost you to acquire a case? What's your return on investment by particular marketing channels? These are all financial metrics, that you have to look at and you have to keep track of. What is one of our favorite ones is what is our revenue to labor ratio, and we'd break it down by department, and so we want each department to be at least a 3-to-1 labor to revenue ratio. Well, why is that important? Because labor is your most expensive cost, so you need to make sure that your labor is being efficient, and that's hard to do when you're thinking, well, is my receptionist making me any money, or is my bookkeeper making me any money? These non-production people that you look at. But then also your production people, the people like your paralegals and your lawyers who actually are supposed to be bringing in the cash. Are they bringing in enough cash to justify what they cost? So these are all things that you have to look at on the finance side. And I don't know. I think a lot of lawyers, this is again where people get in the back of the bar journal in the disciplinary section, is because they don't master the finance side. It's not that they're bad attorneys, but they get into financial crises and they start cutting corners. They start dipping into the client trust account, just things like that can get you, crosswise with the bar in a heartbeat. So I think this is one of the key ones that I really try when I coach other lawyers. This is one of the ones I start with. I start right with that. How is your cash flow? Let's talk about cash. Any other comments about cash flow?
No, the quote that I had was revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is king.
Cash is king.
Cash is king. And you went a long time, Mark, without a statement of cash flow. So it can be done. We just don't necessarily advise it because it was just so much more stressful for you back then.
It is the hardest. It is the hardest report to create because there's a lot of hidden things that QuickBooks doesn't kick out for you.
Yeah.
So QuickBooks is great about creating a profit and loss statement. It's okay with creating a balance sheet if you know how to do it right. It literally can't create a statement of cash flow that makes any sense that's useful. We've tried. It has to be something that you sort of end up doing some manual calculations on. But it's important to do because you need to know where it's going.
Yep. So. Which leads us to our fourth core skill, which you're going to introduce since it's your favorite.
Oh, it's my favorite. Number 4. The number 4 core skill is marketing. Marketing is the engine of growth. So marketing does not necessarily equal advertising. Marketing equals understanding client needs and delivering trust. So they will contact you and hire you. So talk about the marketing funnel. I was looking at something last night. and it was talking about the top of the marketing funnel. And I was like, I had to think about that a couple of times to figure out what the hell they're talking about, the top of the funnel. And the top of the funnel is just the general awareness that you exist. For example, we run television commercials. And that's what an example of what top of the funnel marketing is. It is giving the general public general awareness that we exist. Hopefully they will see that and they will call us, but that's not the primary focus of, the top of the funnel marketing. It's just general awareness. Because what's really going to happen, and this has been my experience, is when they actually need you, they're going to go to the internet. They're going to go to the Google God, and they're going to search whatever they need. Disability lawyer near me. And we're going to pop up along with all of our competitors. And the fact that they have seen our ads before on television gives us top of the funnel marketing awareness. Therefore, the theory being that we hope, and I think the evidence sort of bears this out, is that presented with a list of multiple people, they're going to pick the one most familiar to them, i.e., hopefully they're going to pick us because our name is more familiar because we were, did all the top of the funnel marketing. That's the theory. Let's see, we'll see at the end of the year how well that worked out.
Well, I think what you're saying, Mark, is that marketing is the thing that drives awareness, which leads to building brand equity, which hopefully generates leads.
Yes, I think the flow is awareness equals interest equals action equals hopefully loyalty if you did a good job. I know we did a podcast on the one-page marketing plan. I should have looked that up ahead of time to give the actual episode of it, but you don't remember? You remember all the episodes.
I actually don't.
By the way, we were corrected during break. We are on episode number 72 now.
We are.
I didn't realize we were up into the 70s, but we're up into the 70s. So,
and I think this works across all your channels, Mark. You talk a lot about channels. And so, for example, with your attorney referrals, you want to make sure that you're still building that awareness, which, of course, is your brand.
Gee, why are we doing this podcast? Let me think about that. Oh, yeah, awareness.
Yes, we hope that you remain aware of the firm.
Yes, let's be aware of what we do. Do we occasionally drop in that we do disability law? Yes, we do.
Which then, of course, builds hopefully our brand equity, and then will hopefully lead to more referrals. And so the funnel works the same across the different marketing channels, regardless of what they are.
Right.
In the community. And then, of course, on SEO.
The ultimate goal of marketing is to be known for something. Not just to be known, but be known for something. So, Coca-Cola, what are they known for? That crisp, refreshing taste on a hot summer day, blah, 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 blah. Whatever they're marketing, they're known for something. What are we known for? Hopefully, we are known for being the best disability lawyers in the universe. I don't think I violated any bar rules on that. I said the best.
I don't know. It depends on whether or not
we're going to end up in the back of the disciplinary sheets in the bar journal. You're here. You told me to say it.
So I think we do a lot on marketing. So any more closing thoughts on marketing before we move to our fifth core skill?
Always be marketing. Always be marketing. One of the best things that we ever did was during COVID. Everybody started cutting back on marketing. We doubled down on marketing and we exploded. So, anytime the economy goes bad, the first thing people do is they start cutting their marketing budget, which is the exact wrong thing to do. That's when you double down. Every time the economy has sucked, we've always picked up business. And I think that's
probably unique to your
practice. It might be
area,
slightly unique to our practice, but it also is people pull back. TV ads were so freaking cheap during COVID because everybody stopped advertising. That TV stations had so much inventory, and it was a beautiful thing. I'm just saying,
There's always opportunity.
Not saying that COVID was a beautiful thing, but the opportunity was a beautiful thing. So
you have to look for the opportunity.
Look for the opportunity. Where there's chaos, there's opportunity. Remember that. So, okay, all right. We may have to edit that part out to keep out of the disciplinary pages, but. Diana said it, not me. Diana, what is number 5? What is core value number 5?
I like the way you've put it, Mark. It's organizational behavior, leading humans, not just cases.
Right. We are in the people business. people in terms of the people in our organization that we lead, people in terms of the clients that we represent, people in terms of the referral sources that send us business, you lovely people out there in podcast land that refer us cases. We're in the people business, and that is all about, well, in this case, organizational behavior. I'm talking more about human behavior. I think the core skill they're talking about is organizational behavior, how you organize your firm, how your people interact with each other, how your people interact with your client.
Yeah, so I think I just went on a Drucker quote today, because Drucker says that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I think that that's, not that strategy is important. I do obviously like operations, but I think that culture really makes the difference. And we talk a lot about that here, whether that's through the unreasonable hospitality episode or onboarding. And we talk a lot about your core values and how you came up with those. But all of that is organizational behavior, because at the end of the day, culture drives performance, because you're talking about whether or not your people are engaged and whether they're aligned with your purpose, because all of that's going to translate externally to customer service.
Okay, so here's that name again. Matthew, we butchered this the last time we tried to say this name. Emerzian.
Oh, there's keynote speaker.
The keynote speaker at Atticus last week. Matthew Imzeren.
I have plausible deniability. I was not there, sir.
Okay, Matthew E. We're going to call him Matthew E. So Matthew E., he was the one that gave out the bracelet. The bracelet, little rubber thing, says, I matter, you matter, we matter. And that's, we don't exactly use that phrase, but it does fit right in with our culture, because our culture here is very much a culture of all of our people matter. We're not just cogs in a wheel. Everybody here matters. When we look at our core values of, excellence and teamwork and wellness, meaning, health and happiness in the workplace, we try to bring that culture into our total organizational behavior, because ultimately I want that to flow through to our customer service, to how our staff treats our clients, because ultimately that's the business we're in. We're in the people business, and we want to take care of our clients. We also want our clients to be happy and refer business back to us, and that just kind of creates this big flywheel effect of more and more happy customers equal more and more new business, which is good for us, and we're all happy. Note here, organizational behavior, understanding motivation, understanding communication, understanding conflict resolution, all has to do with organizational behavior. This is a lot falls on your lap.
Yes, it does. And I think the part that you and I have really focused on in the last couple of years, especially, is developing leadership, because not only just with our leadership team, but also the team leads, kind of the sergeants that run the Army, that Marc talks a lot about and that we talk a lot about on the podcast, because, they really are the people who help enforce your culture. They're the ones you spend the most time with. And so I think that the character of your leaders, all of those core values that you just mentioned, Marc, about integrity and accountability, they're the ones that have the day-to-day impact on the team. And so if your leadership team and if your sergeants of your Army, of your law firm, aren't living within your same core values and are not exhibiting the same culture that you want, I would look for that misalignment, because it will translate into your profitability, to come back to that other core skill.
Right. And I think a lot of organizational behavior comes down to your, number one, your ability to delegate. You can't grow an organization unless you're willing to delegate, down to other people, because otherwise, I, as the owner, I can't do everything. So hence, I've had to hire people. And ultimately, the more people you hire, the more authority you have to delegate down, the more authority you have to give up, which sometimes is hard for people. I think I've mastered that skill pretty well, I would say. But with delegation comes trust. You have to trust your people. You have to trust them to do the right thing. And you also have to be willing to live with their mistakes. Somebody had the quote, I know back at my office right now, there's somebody screwing something up, and I'm okay with it. I didn't say that, but I've heard it, and I get it. So the point is when you delegate somebody and you trust somebody, you have to understand that they're human and they will make mistakes, and that's why I give all my new employees a speech. If you make a mistake, that's okay. Just let us know, and we will fix it. We will help you fix it, and we will learn from this experience. And those are one of the things that is hard for a lot of control freaks out there to let go. It's like, I can't let that go because what if they screw it up? Well, what if they screw it up? What if you screwed up? Somebody, it doesn't, it's everything is fixable. We're not doing brain surgery here. I think in short about organizational behavior, people are your firm's greatest leverage point. People equal leverage. You can get so much more done with an effective, well-trained organization. I think that's the whole concept behind this.
I really like the way you ended these 5 core skills, Mark, because I think people absolutely, there's so much emphasis on technology these days, which, I guess that's part of the operations core skill. But so much emphasis on technology and AI and all of that, but people have never been more important to success. I mean, we've said that before. They're the greatest competitive advantage.
Mm-hmm. All right, so when we come back from our break, we're going to go through our 5 action steps going forward.
This is Marc Whitehead, lawyer, entrepreneur, and business coach. Thanks for listening to the Successful Barrister podcast. If we've stirred your juices, hit me up with an email at marc@marcwhitehead.com. Remember, Marc is spelled with a C. And get on the Successful Barrister newsletter mailing list. Even better, let's set up a call. I'd love to talk to you about working together, talk shop, or just shooting the breeze.
And we're back. All right, Diana. So we're going to go through our 5 action steps going forward. So real quickly summarize the 5 core skills that we're probably going to do some periodic podcasts specifically on each of these over the next couple of months. But core strategy, or core skill number 1, strategy, seeing the big picture. 2, operations, running efficiently. 3, finance, knowing your numbers. 4, marketing, attracting and keeping clients. And 5, organizational behavior, leading people effectively, which leads to our 5 action steps going forward. And I get to go first. I don't know why I get to go first, but apparently...
Well, it's your podcast, but go for it, Mark.
We are co-stars. We are co-equals. We're going down in flames together, okay?
You just want me to take the rap for your bar adjourn, for your bar write-up.
Exactly.
All right, Mark, but this one actually does work for you.
Okay. Number 1, think like a CEO. Think like a chief executive officer. Shift from casework to company building, i.e. shift from being the technician, the technical term, or the lawyer in the firm, to being the person who's building the organization. That doesn't mean you can't have to stop practicing law. Now, that's kind of where I've gone. I've become basically a full-time manager, marketer, mentor. That's how I've chosen to do this role. Doesn't mean you have to give up all aspects of handling client claims, client files, but you need to shift a significant portion of your time away from the technical work of law into the work of building your organization.
Yeah, I would almost disagree with you and say you absolutely have to.
But
that may be another episode too, Mark, because I think that, a CEO's primary function is the business, not the practice.
Okay, so we'll compromise on this. So if you are a law firm owner and you want to continue in the day-to-day practice of law, hire a CEO to run your firm for you.
100%. Yeah, you're not the CEO, but you definitely need one looking out for the business, thinking about all 5 core skills we just talked about today.
Okay.
Someone needs to have their eye on the ball.
Exactly. That doesn't mean you're not the owner. Doesn't mean you're not the primary decision maker. It just means
Doesn't mean your name's not on the building.
Exactly. That's what really, that's the ego part.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, choose your strategy. Define your firm's where to play and how to win. We've clearly chosen our strategy. We choose to play in the disability world, in the federal world, on a nationwide basis. And how are we going to win? By basically being the best organization that is dedicated to representing disabled people that we can possibly build. So that's how we're going to win. But basically, choose your strategy. The worst thing you can be is a generalist. Pick where you're going to play. Nobody refers to a generalist. People refer to specialists. So pick where you want to play and become known for that.
And if listeners, you are a generalist, maybe the next step would be to figure out where you don't want to play. What are those? What practice areas are you in that you either don't like and or are not profitable for you? Mark, there's an episode. Mark talks a story about how he realized, was it criminal defense?
Yes.
Was no longer $100 a day, an hour?
It was $200 a day. Flat fee, $200 a day.
And find that version of your practice and start working from there.
I was a time when $200 a day was good money, and I was happy to take
there's
it.
There's nothing wrong with $200 a day.
But at some point, that became no.
Well, it became a trade-off for your time.
Yes, it's a trade-off.
So moving to the third takeaway on operations, I think the next step would be to document your operations. And then from there, after documenting it, pick one area that you're going to systematize for scalability. And that may be, your workflows, that may be your intake scripts. There's a lot of opportunities, but just pick something and run with it.
So we've created paralegal manuals for each
procedure manuals.
Procedure manuals.
Click by click by click.
Click by click by click. I think one of the key things is you as the owner, if you have somebody else that can do this for you, they should be the one to do it. Particularly, if you're a small shop and you have a paralegal and you want to create a procedure manual for your paralegal to use, have her write down everything that she does in detail. Not the way that you think she ought to do it, but what she's actually doing. Okay, that's the key. What they're actually doing. Then, after that is done, then you can go back and evaluate it, and then you can make changes that you see need to be made. But don't fool yourself by writing down a procedure manual of the way you think things should be done. Write it down the way they're actually happening.
Well, and I think that, with the technology the way it is today, if you're finding law firm owners hard to let go of things, you can absolutely use so many tools out there. What is it? Scribe will literally watch you and then create a procedure manual. You can screen record and it'll create a procedure manual. We use Loom. So if you're having problems letting go of the vine, there's so much technology out there to help you make sure that your people that you are delegating things to is that those things are getting done the way you want them done. And so I think that, start with operations, or at least pick one thing that you're going to systematize.
Number 4, know your numbers. Review one key financial metric weekly. You as the law firm leader need to know your numbers. Now, I would suggest highly that you don't do your own books if you can afford to have somebody else do your books for you, because it is a tremendous time suck. And I did my own books for years, and my rationality behind it was, but I really know my numbers really well because I do my own books. Not that I paid the bills or wrote the checks, but I did the reconciliations every week.
You did the daily downloads.
I did the daily downloads when you started. I did all of that myself. And for a while, it serves you well. I mean, you get to know it. You get to understand it.
That's probably why you know your numbers so well.
And that's the reason I know my numbers so well. But, at some point, you need to move on from that. You need to delegate that out. And therefore, you need to be looking. I look at my numbers probably twice a week. I go into the QuickBooks twice a week, and I look and see where we're at. Usually about every Tuesday and about every Friday. Somewhere in there, I give myself about 3 days. But twice a week, I will just go and take a quick look, about 10, 15 minutes, and I'll start poking around, looking around. Things look right. Okay, good, fine. Boom, I'm out.
Yeah, I would say, Mark, that if you are a law firm owner and have anyone depending on you, whether that's an employee for their next paycheck or a family of your own, parents who financially depend on you, if you have people anywhere in your life that financially depend on you, it is your moral obligation to know your numbers. And I'm not saying be able to quote your P&L or your profitability by percentage with the way a lot of people do these days. Atticus tried to get us to do that. You should know your scorecard off the top of your head. No, I'm just going to refresh my dashboard on my phone and I'll be able to tell them. And it gives me comfort. Know whether you're in the red or the green. Use whatever tool you have to do. But it is it is important that you know those numbers. And so moving to our fifth takeaway, and this goes back to organizational behavior, Marc's fifth core skill, invest in your people. If you have one employee, it's not just enough to say, okay, now I have an employee. Make sure you have the procedures to train that person, that you have the onboarding there, and that you're creating a culture where they want to stay at, because your turnover will inevitably create a bottom line issue.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Your biggest investment is people. People are not a cost; they're an investment. So invest in them, train them, treat them well. If you're running your business correctly, they will all make you money. So
does that mean I get to go eat turkey now?
Yes. So now we get to go eat turkey. So closing thoughts. I like this quote: "Running a law firm is the ultimate business challenge, because your product is human expertise. Therefore, we need to master the business, and then you will master your destiny." I'm not sure who made that quote, but I thought it was a good one. Any closing thoughts?
No, I'm very excited about this kind of masterclass that you've come up with, Marc, on your 5 core skills on how to run a business. We talk a lot, like I said at the very beginning of this episode, in and around all of these topics: leadership and culture and processes and EOS. But I like the way that you turned it into kind of a masterclass.
Cool. All right. With that, we are out of time, and we can smell the turkey downstairs, and we're going to go eat. So I want to thank everybody for listening to the Successful Barrister podcast, where legal legends are made, and hopefully we don't get listed in the back of the Bar Journal. I'm Marc.
And I'm Diana.
And together we're the dynamic duo of law. So if you've enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review it and share it with your fellow overworked attorneys. And for more episodes and resources, check us out at successfulbarrister.com, or be sure to hit me up if you want to talk more at marc@marcwhitehead.com. Remember, Marc is spelled with a C. And don't forget our sponsor, Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability law firm. And find us at www.disabilitydenials.com.